Hey guys, how many of you have heard this question? Honey, does this dress make me look fat? Hi, this is Barry Phillips with 10-Minute Torah, day number 2 of Torah portion Tetzaveh. And we're going to read from chapter number 28 of the book of Shemot, or Exodus, beginning with verse number 1. Moshe has been addressed, and Yah says to him, "And you bring Aaron near, your brother, and his sons with him from among the children of Israel, for serving as priests to me, Aaron, Nadav, Avihu, Eleazar, and Ithamar, the sons of Aaron. You are to make set-apart garments for Aaron, your brother, for esteem and for comeliness. And you speak to all the wise of heart, whom I fill with the spirit of wisdom, and they shall make the garments of Aaron to set him apart, for him to serve as a priest to me." I do notice immediately that Aaron is not asked whether he wants to be a priest. He's just said, "You're going to be a priest." But let's talk about the garments. These garments that are determined for him, that he must wear them in the performance of his now chosen or decreed destiny. It's important for us to understand the role of garments. They have at least two distinct purposes, the first being utilitarian. They protect us from the elements. They provide a covering, a sense of modesty for us. The animal kingdom likewise has this covering of utilitarian means. Its fur or its skin, its feathers. It covers them and protects them from the elements. But man has the opportunity, being a higher order, to choose what his covering is. And it's in this choosing that we see a reflection of the man or the woman from the inside. Our choices of colors and styles and fashions exhibit to those that see us something about ourselves. The idea of clothing is to reflect, not just to cover, but to reflect. Our wardrobe reflects our state of mind. If we're in one of those moments of, "I'm not doing much today," we may be in sweat clothes or something just very comfortable. We're not going outside. If we're going to work, perhaps we have a uniform to wear. Military comes to mind. Maybe we are going to a business meeting. Business attire is required. So we're trying to dress for the role or the part that we're about to play. Others have an opportunity to dress up, to wear something beyond the norm of their usual taste. You can watch some folks, perhaps at a wedding, a social event, and they're not accustomed to a suit and tie or a long dress or a more elaborate fashion, and they're uncomfortable. They'll do it because they have to, but it's obvious they're not comfortable in it. And the very first moment that they can loosen the tie or kick off their high heel shoes, that's when they're going to do it, because this is not me. This is not what I like. Give me a pair of blue jeans and a t-shirt and I'm at home. Then there are those that once they put on the higher state of garments, they put on a tux or a suit and tie, they get their hair done, they put on more elaborate jewelry and a more glamorous dress, they actually step into the role. This is not who they are normally, but you put these clothes on them and they pull out of themselves a higher level of being, a classier style of person, a more professional presentation perhaps, that we didn't realize was in there, but it's in there. It's just that the clothes that they normally wear mask it over. And so we say that, "Man, you look good. You ought to dress like this more often." It shows an inward potential that has been hidden up to this point. The interesting thing about garments is the Hebrew word for garments, beged, B-E-G-E-D, is perhaps the way we would transliterate it. Beged. What's interesting about this word is it means treachery or deceit. That is, that clothes have an ability to hide who we really are. Disguising ourselves with styles and fashion in order to present a preferred image of ourselves and not who we really are. Consider the treachery of clothes in the Torah, in the scriptures. Adam and Chava, Adam and Eve, they hid themselves once they found that they were naked with fig leaves. Were they successful? No, it was a treacherous, deceitful act because they were still naked in their sins. Rivka and Yaakov, Rebekah and Jacob, they deceived Isaac by dressing him in Esau's garments. They pulled it off, but it had treacherous ramifications. Leah wears the bridal garments of her sister Rachel. And Yaakov doesn't find out what's going on. He thought at the ceremony, this was the bride of my choice. And later on, he finds out, I've been deceived. Joseph's brothers bring his multicolored garment to his father dipped in blood and convince him that his son is dead. That was deceitful. Potiphar's wife deceives her husband, holding Joseph's garments in her hand and saying, he tried to attack me. Tamar deceives Judah by putting on the garments of a harlot, convincing him to lay with her because she's been neglected in his house and his youngest son has not been given to her as a husband as of yet. So when Aaron puts on these garments of the high priest, is he disguising himself? Or is he stepping into a role, revealing an inner quality that he himself did not know was in there? I think it's Yah saying to him, Aaron, you have compassion. You have a pastor's heart. You have a priestly ability within you. And when you put on these special garments, there's an anointing that is going to come over you. Perhaps we could see this take place when we take a talit, a prayer garment, and we pull it out and we lay it up over our heads and we close the flaps frontward in front of us. And we realize I've stepped into a chamber. There is an anointing to pray that has just come over me. It's not the fabric. It's not the colors on the fabric. It's not the fact that you put something over you. It's the inner persona of a prayer warrior that is elevated and brought forth in that particular moment. Now, there is something that I want you to see in verse number 3, and as it says that Yah wants Moshe to speak to the wise of heart, whom I have filled with a spirit of wisdom, and they shall make the garments of Aaron to set him apart so that he can do his job. There were people that had been given an inner quality, an anointing, a giftedness to make these particular garments, so not that they would put them on, but they make them for somebody else to do their job and their role. They had an anointing to cause someone else to function in their anointing. How this says to us that we need each other. When you discern what your calling, your gifting, and your anointing is, when you willingly as a servant will step into that role and do what it is that you are called to do, you will then supply the opportunity, maybe even the physical means for someone else to begin to step into their calling. It could be that when you do what you're called to do in your act of obedience and service, someone else who doesn't understand who they really are will be able to put on the garment of their activity and their calling, and something hidden inside them will begin to rise up, become of use, and will elevate them. If what you do enables them to be elevated, then you also, my friend, are going to be elevated along with them. When Aaron moved in those courts, when he stood with his hands lifted up and pronounced the Aaronic blessing upon the nation of Israel, there were a small group of people who made those garments he stood in. that we're being edified and elevated right along with him in that task. Now's the time. Allow your anointing to move you into his giftedness. More tomorrow. Until then, shalom.